How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below with your question, and I'll try to address each and every question either in the video or in the comment section down below, or in next week's Q&A. So last week we had a big surge of questions, so I won't get to all those questions in this video, although I'll kick some of those to next week's video. If it comes to a point where there is too many questions to address in a single video, I'll either make them longer or do these videos twice a week. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And if it does get to that point, then I'll make a poll and I'll try to appease as many people as possible. But obviously, I'll choose what the vast majority of people are voting for. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week. And it is, how do you know that your fluids are being changed at either your dealer or your service center that you choose to have your vehicle serviced at? So this question is mostly going to apply to transmissions because the newer transmissions, most of them do not have a dipstick anymore. So it becomes very difficult to let a technician know if it's been serviced before, and if for you to check, if you want to personally check if it was serviced after you paid for that service. So it's 2023, about to be 2024 in a month or so. There's no reason that you can't ask your technician to get a video or a picture of your old fluid versus your new fluid being installed into the transmission. I try to do this when I do work for myself, and if it's through the dealer, we provide a multi-point inspection showing you some of the older fluids and some of the newer fluids. And we could always bring the customer out to the vehicle. A lot of customers ask to do that, and that's perfectly fine. I have no problems with that. But first and foremost, you should trust that your service department is doing the right thing, whether it be a dealer or an independent shop. If you don't trust that person, and I've kind of covered this already in a previous question, then you should probably be taking your your work and your job and your maintenance somewhere else. But like I said, it's 2023, and there's no reason that the technician or the dealer or the mom and pop shop can't show you proof of these services being done. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So this next question is, are fuel injection cleaners worth it? So they vary in different prices. Obviously, my personal opinion, I'm gonna recommend you just use top tier fuel from a good brand gas station, along with higher octane fuel, whatever highest octane fuel is available. And in most cases, that's gonna keep your injectors as clean as possible. Now, if your engine is direct injection, obviously they are prone to a carbon deposits building up on them, so you can toss a fuel injection cleaner in there once in a while. I personally wouldn't do it every single tank full like this person asked. But again, you would really have to compare identical cars, identical driving patterns, identical fuel stations, and a decent amount of samples and a broad enough miles that we can kind of really get a good sample and a feel for this. So I know there's a lot of advertising going on for this, but obviously a lot of them are just trying to sell their own products. Personally, in my cars, I've never had injectors fail. I have a Pilot some of them are susceptible to these failed injectors, and I haven't had any of those issues either on that vehicle. So, and this again, I try to get as much information from these customers, what brand fuel or what octane fuel, I should say, do they use. And most of them use regular. I get it. Price is expensive of the gas. So, really depends. But I would personally just use 93 octane fuel. Again, it's going to come at a cost, but it will save your injectors down the road, in my personal opinion, and will also keep your cats nice and healthy in the long run as well. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so this next question is, are bent wheels worth replacing or fixing? So these wheels, if you're in a tri-state area like I am here, we see a lot of bent wheels, mostly on these newer cars with the low profile tires. We'll have customers with a car 15,000 miles with all four wheels bent. So most of them come in complaining about a vibration, and obviously they're not happy because they're brand newish car has bent wheels already, right? So at that point, to replace the wheel or repair the wheel, which never gets 100% back to its true life, becomes a question. So obviously either option is fairly expensive. So if you could deal with the vibrations, then I would say just try to deal with it. If not, try to pick the 2 best wheels and put those in the front and put the 2 worst wheels in the back to help minimize the vibrations. Now, obviously, if the wheel is to a point where you feel uncomfortable driving it and the vibrations are just excessive, then you're either gonna have to replace them or repair them. Personally, I would probably try to replace them and try to avoid any potholes, which is damn near impossible in this area. I personally have bent a couple different wheels in my vehicles and I try to avoid every pothole I can, but sometimes, you know, whether it be in the dark, you can't see as well, or there's just traffic on both sides of you, you know, if you're on a highway and you just can't avoid that pothole and you just have to eat it. Unfortunately, that is the reality. So really becomes a point to where you have to make that decision for you, whether you're feeling safe or you just don't want to deal with the vibrations and replacing or repairing a wheel, knowing that it's probably going to happen again. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so this next question is which quick lube spots to avoid, and not to knock on any of them, but I'm gonna tell you to try to avoid all of them. So most of them do not replace your crush washer, or if they do, they double crush wash it a lot of times because they don't want to deal with taking out the old one because the previous person over torqued it, which we see all the time at the dealer. I even have a customer that came to me personally this weekend. He's actually a follower and he watches the videos, and he came in for an oil change and a key program, and he had no crush washer at all. And I told him, hey man, you know, wherever you're changing your oil, these places are not replacing your crush washer. He said, that's crazy because I bought OEM crush washers from Honda and I have a bag of them. And every time I go in, I give them a new crush washer. So the fact that they're not even replacing them when the customer is handing them a crush washer is just crazy to me. Maybe they forgot, maybe they didn't, but 9 out of 10 times we see no crush washers being replaced, which eventually with these aluminum oil pans ends up eating up the threads and costing you an oil pan 5-10 years down the road. So there won't be any initial effect from them reusing it, but along the, you know, somewhere along the lines within a car's lifespan, it's going to damage the oil pan and it's going to be a very expensive repair for a couple of cents washer. So for that reason alone, I would avoid them. A lot of them try to upsell you on these you know, fuel additives and all this stuff that may or may not work, but you know, they have a completely different maintenance packages than the Honda dealer. They really don't know what to look for either. So when you go to a factory trained facility, these technicians like myself, we know 9 out of 10 things that are wrong with the car before you even pull in, you know, and we know what to look for. And we're gonna explain it to you and try to tell you, you know, the severity of importance, at least I do, and make you, you know, make an informed decision. Most of these places are just going to get you in and out, and if you don't have a complaint, they're not even going to look for it, or they may not even be able to address your complaint even if you had a complaint, because all they're there for is to change your oil. And maybe that works for you, which is fine, but my biggest gripe would be them reusing a crush washer or not even putting one at all. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so last but not least, question of the week, and it is, what can happen if you avoid adjusting your valves in the long run? So most of the times I'll recommend a valve adjustment about 90 to 100,000 miles on a vehicle, and that's a good practice to follow in my personal opinion. And in most cases we'll find these valves are tight. So if they're tight, it's no big deal. We loosen them up and then we are good to go. If they're loose, usually I let them be, unless if they're extremely loose, then I'll adjust them to an acceptable spec. So let's say your car has tight valves and is causing you an issue, for instance, a misfire. So if you don't address that, eventually it will lead to mechanical engine failures 9 out of 10 times in the form of a burnt valve, which will lead to a dead misfire and eventually damaging your cats as well. And obviously loss of power and potentially the car going into limp mode and you not being able to accelerate the car, you know, safely. So that would be the biggest thing. So if you are experiencing some sort of a misfire that requires a valve adjustment or some sort of any codes that indicate that it needs a valve adjustment, I would do it sooner rather than later, because that is one thing that if you ignore will only cause more and more issues down the line. So not something I take lightly, not something that is also super common for you to do without having an issue to do it. But again, good practice, 90 to 100,000 miles. Or if you have an issue, then obviously you want to address that even sooner than 90 to 100,000 miles. So that being said, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.